Welcome to a Drop Tent Media Production.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to the third episode, I believe, of the Porcupine. I am your host, Adam Nutter. Thanks for joining me again. With me in studio, I'm probably the only in-studio guest I'm going to fucking get because every libertarian doesn't live around me. Give it up for the host of the Brian Nichols Show, my man himself in studio, Brian Nichols.
What's up, Adam?
Man?
How you doing, my man?
Good, man. Thanks for coming down.
Yeah, face to face. I like it.
Right? Because every time I done your show, you were on Nerds of Words before we changed to Cult of Us.
Yep.
You were on the old podcast,
Plastic.
and it was all fucking just virtual.
Yeah.
It was all
And
during
it's
COVID.
what's great is that now we can actually get this face to face thing back together. So we don't have to worry about possibly killing grandma, which, I mean, candidly, I don't think that was really an issue that we had to be too concerned about from the onset. If we just were smart.
Yeah.
But
also, my grandparents are dead. So,
well, there you go. Yeah. So I guess that solved itself.
God already
for you.
did that before COVID didn't have to. God did. I don't believe in God. It's fine. Or is there a God that has to? I don't know. And my dad's philosophy is aliens. I was like, you know what?
Dude, did you watch Unacknowledged yet on Amazon Prime? Holy shit.
Yeah.
Holy shit. Stephen Greer and then what was the next one? Close Encounters of the Fifth Kind?
Yes. Dude, I know.
It's interesting. Because think about it, right? Like, we're libertarians, so we're guns ablazing. We're already talking about like libertarian conspiracy theories, but like we're preconditioned to at least like be skeptical of government.
Yeah.
Right? So all of a sudden we're hearing all these stories of all these interdimensional space beings, right? And guess what happens? All of a sudden, you have what's his name, Stephen Greer, go ahead with all these other government officials, and they start releasing treasure troves of all this classified information. And then, like right before the documentary comes out, what happens? The CIA is like, shit, and they release everything. And then you're like, huh? I
should have. I didn't think we were talking about UFOs, or I would have pulled this video. But the Pentagon just released the most like clear video of them chasing a UFO, and it was like they said, not what I said. They said a couple of 100 feet over a city, and they're chasing it and they're keeping up with it. And then this thing flies over I forgot where in America it was, but it was a coastal town. They're tracking over the city, goes over the city, goes over the ocean, and just goes into the ocean.
That's wild.
And it's there. And you watch it. We can watch this right now. Again, I don't know the video. I don't know where I even saw it, but they just released, and I was like, why are we not talking about this more? Like,
so that's one of the reoccurring themes. It's funny. So I know we were going to talk about like media stuff today.
We'll get there.
But one of the themes of both Unacknowledged and then his second documentary, Close Encounters of the Fifth Kind, is this whole concept of putting things out there in plain sight and making it like, yeah, it's there. It's part of the treasure trove of information that we have available, but partly there's just so much noise out there. There's so much content out there. It's hard for us to decipher fact, fiction, opinion. And then all of a sudden it's like, okay, well, yeah, they're acknowledging this, but they're acknowledging other things too. So let's prioritize our outrage and maybe let's prioritize the likelihood of things. So like they're acknowledging basically that they've encountered unidentified flying objects, UFOs, which we would consider like called aliens, and they're like just casually admitting it.
Yeah, it's wild, especially like the Pentagon, literally since its inception of like Roswell, that whole time, they're like, hey man, aliens don't exist. Like you guys are fucking crazy. Okay, we looked into it.
Yeah,
and we're telling you that everything we looked into is explainable, and then, but literally a 180. There really wasn't any like slow. It was like, guys, by the way, we actually have aliens.
Yep.
And everyone's like, wait a minute, there's an election going on.
Funny how that works. Yeah.
Like, because remember, they dropped that right before the election. Mm-hmm. Like the summer of the election, like that's when they really started pushing it. And then it was also during all the unrest. And they always drop the alien shit when there's unrest going on or like an election going on where we're so prioritized with something else. Like, also there's aliens.
Yeah, well, this is supposed to be like part of the plan, right? And the next step from war on terror is now war on aliens. Right?
Yeah.
And part of the documentary, now I'm not telling anyone to go ahead and believe a documentary just from watching a documentary, but like part of the narrative that has been promoted has been pretty much followed through step by step, as was said it was going to since the 90s, essentially. And now we're in this war on terror phase.
Right.
And one of the next steps that's supposed to be coming is the war on aliens, and it's supposed to be this collectivizing of the human race to be focusing against the aliens as one not nation, but one world.
One world, one being against another being.
Right.
Right.
And that is kind of scary.
It's the Watchmen.
More or less.
It's exactly the Watchmen, right? I mean, Ozymandias. I mean, under the movie they changed it to it's Dr. Manhattan. He made like the Dr. But in the book, in the novel, the graphic novel, Ozymandias, he goes, "Hey, there's gonna be a nuclear fallout between us and Russia. So I'm gonna transport interdimensional aliens here. They're gonna kill billions of people, and then we're gonna go, hey, look, we have to unify against this fucking alien threat." That's literally the Watchmen.
Yeah,
that's literally, now that's going to be,
and it's all tactics too.
Yeah.
So and if let's take that, apply it to politics. How often do we see the two major parties? They will use the exact same divide and conquer mentality, but then we have to rally against that group that is trying to conquer us, and we see this ebb and flow back and forth, and we've gotten to the point now where instead of it just being this power balance in the United States, it's going to become eventually a power balance for the entire control of the world,
right?
which is like, it's so even wild to think about, but it's there. We're seeing things start to unwind a little bit, like the peek behind the curtain.
Right.
The CIA just, again, casually releasing those documents. Like, I mean, how many times the past year has Alex Jones been right?
That's the thing, is like, he gets so much shit.
And deservedly so.
Right. No, for sure. Yeah. I'm not even saying that. I'm just, but he's been right.
Right.
So you can't discredit everything.
Well, that's what they try to do.
It's not fair.
Anybody who...
But he's also said batshit crazy stuff.
Exactly.
To be fair.
Yes.
So there is that balance of like, well, that was crazy, but you were right about Bohemian Grove.
Right.
Like we all watched the video. It's there. We could all watch the video still of him in the woods filming a bunch of creepy rich elitist dudes in the woods in front of a giant owl statue. Like, we saw it.
By the way, how many folks do you think listening to this are like, wait, what?
Oh,
that's
yeah.
a thing?
Well, maybe a lot because we're libertarians.
That's true, yeah.
But that's the thing. And I'm like, that's not a conspiracy. That's a real video that
really
happened.
Yes.
And by the way, it's even like they even admit that it's a group.
Yep.
So it's not a conspiracy, but it was at the time.
Yeah. Well, it's funny how all these conspiracies turn out to not be conspiracy like 30, 40, 50, 60 years later. I mean, it was a conspiracy to even question the notion that JFK might have been assassinated by the U.S. government. And then in this new treasure trove of documents that was released, they kind of just admitted it. And it's like, I mean, they don't come out and say it, but like if we can use our critical thinking skills without being called racist.
It's connecting the lines.
Exactly.
Without,
like we can kind of deduce what the actual, it's the guy from Always Sunny in Philly,
Charlie.
Yeah, exactly. It's the exact same.
Pepe.
Exactly. Yeah. So like that's what we
Pepe Silva.
But that's and what sucks is that's how we get framed. And as we start to have more technology available, as we're able to do what we're doing here, having a conversation without the gatekeepers, and we're able to reach people who are genuinely curious. And this kind of goes into like my sales executive mentality, is like meeting people where they're at, entering the conversation they're already having in their mind. So this gives us a chance to start talking about topics that we care about. And if somebody else cares about it, they can go ahead and search and find a long-form conversation about a topic that probably isn't being discussed in the mainstream news. So it gives them a different avenue. And as we have more of these conversations, more of the technology advances, I think we're just going to see more of this kind of conversation permeate throughout our culture. And it's going to get people more and more skeptical of just official narratives, which I think is a good thing. Honestly, Adam.
I think so. No, 100%. This is what I always puzzles me, especially, I guess, in today's just climate. And I can only speak on America, right? On Americans anyways. But it's like, if you tell people, again, like not libertarians, like people on the right or left, and you go like, you say like, oh, hey, A, B, and C is true, and like what they're telling you isn't true.
Right.
They get mad at you.
Yep.
But not mad at like the fact that like they're being lied to.
Yeah. Well, think what that requires. That requires them to basically have to acknowledge that their entire worldview is a lie.
Yeah.
That's a big slap in the face for a lot of people.
I was before we were you showed up, we were talking off mic about this SNL bit that just came out like 2 weeks ago, and I don't know the name of the bit, but it was essentially like an all-black game show, and you had a black host and 3 black contestants, and the black host was like, I think it was like, will you take the vaccine? That was the bit, and the black host was like, will you take the vaccine? And then the whole bit was like, each contestant was like, but they were writing it like they are stupid for questioning it, and I'm like, did the KKK write this bit? Because if any group of Americans should be...
It's the woke racist video. It's like, we agree so much.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm like, if any group of Americans should be distrustful of the government of a vaccine, it should be the black Americans, because the Tuskegee experiment literally... By the way, 1972.
That wasn't so far away. And this is the thing, too, that drives me crazy. And I'll hear people talk about this like, oh, come on, that was so long ago. I'm like, it wasn't. That was grandma. Like, come on.
Also, by the way, so long, like, they won't do it again. I don't understand why. It's like, but there's always, the government's always doing something to somebody all the time. Why? What is this that was so long ago thing? I don't understand that. I really don't. It's like, well, they're still doing it.
Right. Right. Joe Biden literally helped write the 1994 crime bill. Like, and now he's president and talking about red flag laws for people who have marijuana.
Yeah.
The marijuanas.
Well, Kamala Harris.
Oh, of course.
I mean, she only incarcerated all of the black community where she's from,
while she herself was smoking the marijuanas. Of course.
As we're we can smoke easily, and it's like people literally lost their livelihoods over weed, and then she laughs about it. And again,
she's ridiculous.
Again, and we say this, and people will get mad at us. I'm like, shouldn't you be mad about the people's lives who got ruined for weed?
Yes. Well, and right there, what you just said, and that's partly on us. We haven't been effectively communicating to people how important the policies are, because what happens more often than the left can embrace the narratives because they control a lot of times the culture,
the media, and stuff,
exactly. Yeah. So what do we control?
Nothing.
Exactly. So what we have to do is to, instead of fighting against the we're always in last place because we don't control anything mentality, we have to start focusing on things that we can control. And the things that we can control is the way that we speak to people. Maybe we don't have the ability to have a big microphone, but when we're talking to like the individual person, make that person feel like the most important person in the world, and validate 1000% validate their concerns. If they tell you that like they want free healthcare because their healthcare costs are so high, their concern isn't for free healthcare. Their concern is the healthcare costs. Right. So now it's on you as a libertarian to go ahead and help show the value, right? Well, hey, what if we were able to like get rid of those healthcare costs in the first place? Well, like, wouldn't that be a better solution to start? Maybe get them to start thinking about things differently. And it requires us, though, not to say, well, you shouldn't be concerned about that. Here's what you should be concerned about. Let's talk about the Fed, right? That's important. But like your average person doesn't even know the beginnings of monetary policy to have that conversation. We're at level 1000 in terms of like the political acumen that we speak. Yeah. They're on level like 3.
No, and you're right. And that's something I personally have to work on myself because we
all do.
Because I will definitely... Again, be thinking 18 steps ahead. And I'm like, but the fucking Fed, like you said, the Fed. Right. And they're like, what's the Fed? I'm like, and like, I'll get mad, and I shouldn't.
And think about it. That's entirely by design. Yeah. Because where do they go to school?
Right.
The public schooling system. Right. So how many times did you learn about the Fed in school?
0.
Right.
I learned about it in 2008.
And that's the thing is like, I know I went to college and I had heard about the Fed, but I didn't know about like how the Federal Reserve worked.
Dude, do you ever watch Zeitgeist?
No.
Okay. Okay. Documentary. It's definitely available somewhere.
Okay.
It's called Zeitgeist.
Noted.
It's called Zeitgeist. ZEIT. It opens up pretty heavy. It opens up with like the lie of Jesus Christ.
Okay. Okay.
It opens up.
Wow.
Fucking crazy. But hold on. But it covers like every. It's
on the third guest you had in the show. Is that right? Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay.
Well, my point is though, it covers like every conspiracy like known to like man. But that's what it opens with. But it does cover the Fed, and this is how I learned about the Fed. Is this in this documentary when they're like, so the Fed is private, and I was like, what? Like, you don't know that the Fed's a private bank. And they're like, here's how it works. For every $1 million, and this is just a hypothetical number, but like every $1 million they loan to the U.S. government, they get $10 million in interest. And you're like,
hold up, that math does not work.
And then you go, right. So, but even before you get that math, that's where you go, okay, but how do they get the $10 million interest from? Because if we're as a country borrowing money,
Right.
and who's paying their interest.
Go on.
And you're like, at 20 years old, 21 years old, I'm like learning this, and I'm like, I feel like I'm being lied to. Like, you're just sitting there, you're like,
you were.
Right. And then that's when you start to realize it, and you're like, and then you do your own research, and literally, again, this is back when, before DuckDuckGo and shit, right?
Yep.
But, and you Google it, and even then, Google was like, no, this is the Fed, this is what we're, and then they just tell you.
Yep.
And then I'm like, oh, this isn't a conspiracy. This is just how it is. And then no one knows that. And then you tell people that, and they're like, nah. You're like, no, it really is. It's
Well,
nuts.
think about it. And this kind of facilitate our original conversation is like, who do people learn from? They learn
Yeah.
from the public schooling sector. They learn from the media. The media, they're informers. That's who they're supposed to be learning from. And then they learn from their friends. And who do their friends learn from? Right?
Right.
Or college. Maybe
Right.
they go to college, but I think I saw, I think it was Corey DeAngelis.
Oh, he's great.
Oh, yeah. He was actually in episode 200 for my program.
Yes. Yep.
Great school choice, by the way.
Yeah,
Like
oh,
that's probably top 1 or 2 issues besides the lockdowns. Like,
Yeah, there's so many. I'm sure you get the Mises Caucus email at the beginning of the year
Yep.
with the 5 points to hammer home,
Yep.
and those were on point. And one that I think isn't talked about enough is defense against police/rioters.
yeah,
And
we saw that in Philly. Oh, and but before I forget the thought,
Yeah, I'm sorry, go ahead.
for the college,
Yes,
I think
sorry.
it was 97% of the faculty were like either Democrat,
Yeah,
liberal, progressive. It was
Right.
something of those, like the self-identifying. So where people are learning from, it obviously it's going to impact what they believe to be the world, just because that's the confines of really how it's been exposed to them. And to your point, yeah, like we need to be focusing on those things that are directly impacting like people right now.
Yeah.
And that's where Trump, like, people would look at Trump and say, like, I love you, Mr. Trump. And I'd be like, that's weird. Like,
Yeah.
loving a politician. But there's
Right.
something about them saying the word love. And as a sales guy, there's 2 things that we know in sales that always will sell: fear and love.
right.
So them saying they love Trump, that means that he sold them on an emotional
On something,
level.
right? Were they completely, because love, it's a strong emotion. So
Yes.
it's hate and fear, but love.
Because love,
different, man.
You
It hits
have
harder.
Yeah, because you're
Yeah.
connected versus fear is a self-protection mode, right?
Right.
You're making
Right.
sure you're pushing the bad away, whereas love is you're keeping it close
Right.
and embracing. So for them to say I love Trump, I then put the thinking cap on, and I'm like, well, why would they be in a condition to want to love a politician like Trump so quickly and so fervently, man? Like
Yeah.
it's like
Rabid.
oh my God, it's insane. And then I started to think, it's like, well, think about the past 20, 30 years. Like, I'm old enough to remember, it's like the Pepperidge Farm bit from Family Guy. The Pepperidge Farm remembers. Like,
Yeah.
I remember in like the 2010s, I went to CPAC. And I remember, I think it was Newt Gingrich did
yeah.
a speech at CPAC. Was it Newt? I think it was Newt. And basically was saying like how just terrible the corporate media is. And the crowd went wild. And you think about how many years a lot of folks on the right have been honestly gaslit because they've been told what they believe
Yeah.
by the corporate media, and those who aren't them, and them being the conservatives, take what they're being told as this is what part of the country believes as truth. Whereas the other part of the people who actually are the ones being described, they're like, that's not at all what I believe.
I saw a very interesting tweet from The Hill, their actual official Twitter, and it was like black gun ownership on the rise in America, which is great. You and I love to hear that, right?
Yep.
Now, I was like, I gotta read the comment section. I gotta see what the fuck people are saying. And again, you guys can go look this tweet up yourself and see what you guys see, but this is what I saw, and this is 100% honest. You go down there, and if people are on the left, I started clicking profiles, so and then I would click profiles, and one guy's like, proud conservative, the guy's like, liberal, he, him, whatever. I'm like, all right, so you're getting the base of who these people are. Every person on the left was like, this is just now great. Oh, now the right's going to ban guns because they don't want to see black people have guns. Every single person left. Every single person on the right was like, that's awesome, gun ownership on the rise.
Yeah. How about that?
So I didn't see a single conservative be like, fuck. No, I'm sure there might have been. I'm not saying there wasn't.
Right.
I'm just saying.
And you know what they would do?
I didn't see it.
They would take that one and be like,
Yeah.
several conservative accounts have said, and you like click on Jim Bob's account. It's like Jim Bob 48624, and he's got like 3 followers. And he's like followed by like 2 no-name accounts.
Exactly.
That's who they're talking about as like many accounts say.
Right.
And it's literally Kathy Newman to Jordan Peterson. So what you're saying is, that's I actually did a tweet about this the other, like a couple weeks ago, and I was like, if you were to ask your average conservative to explain to somebody, an impartial third party, what a liberal or progressive or Democrat believes, 9 times out of 10 they're gonna get pretty close to what they actually believe. But if you were to ask to flip it, right? Ask the Democrat, the progressive socialist to describe what a libertarian or a conservative or a Republican, what they believe, I can almost guarantee it's going to be some caricature that they have been taught or they've been conditioned to believe that that's who that person is. There was a crazy poll. It was actually kind of scary. When you were talking to people on the left, the number one thing that they were concerned about heading into 2021, do you know what it was?
I can't even imagine.
Trump voters.
Oh.
Trump voters. The number one thing that Republicans are worried about? Healthcare and lockdowns.
I was going to say the economy.
So think about that. The right was more concerned about policy, whereas the left was more concerned about people. And that speaks a lot to how we're approaching government. A lot of folks in the left have looked to government to replace some type of religious mentality, right? Some higher calling.
Right.
Because if you're in the major Christian world, you look at God as the ultimate judge at the end of the day. And it's not on us to be, the judges ourselves, but rather to show and live a Christian life and then let God be the judge, the judge at the end of the day.
Right.
So if God's the judge at the end of the day, but we are now overtly non-religious and we are now embracing this idea of, well, government is our new church. Government is our new means of judging moral good or bad. Well, guess what? Who controls government? People. So now we're conditioning people to look at government as a means to delegate moral goods and bads versus letting government be the means to set some type of like standard for like equal application under a law.
Which I obviously is a horribly dangerous road to do.
Right. But like if we're going to
yeah.
take what it was intended to do, which obviously like policy intentions don't really matter. You don't look at the actual outcomes. So you think about that though, it really speaks to why we've seen this constant schism split further and further and further apart over the past 10, 15 years, is because as more on the left, you've seen this embrace of using government to help institute moral good. What happens is we get into the fear mode again, right?
Yeah.
We get right back into it. So what's the right do? They're like, well, damn it, I have to focus on policy now.
Right.
And they try to focus on policy and make it so the policy is now fighting against the pull more and more of the moral do-goods from the left. So we see, and to quote Michael Malice, conservatism is just progressivism driving the speed limit.
Right.
What we're seeing is a trying to hold these institutions back from the progression of the progressives by the conservatives instead of just acknowledging the elephant in the room, and that is that the systems are inherently broken.
Right.
So what do we need to do? We need to be able to like scale back and focus more back on local elections. So like focusing on your local, I mean, good God, dude, we went through the entire pandemic. We can all sit here in Philadelphia and say how awful it was for like in my area. I went 4.5 weeks without my trash being picked up. 4.5 weeks.
Oh, right. Well, you guys, I'm in Bucks County, so it was a little different.
It was a hot mess.
Fucked.
I'm sitting, I would sit outside. I'm like, I can't walk outside without it smelling like garbage. And mind you, this is like in August. So it's like
legitimately,
85.
it's actually like a health hazard stuff too when garbage get picked up for that long.
Guess what? Who runs the garbage collection here? It's a city government monopoly.
Right.
And like if that doesn't speak to the inherent flaws that we see when our local governments are so inept, that why are we focused? Like, and I know we have to get ballot access. I know we can use the presidential elections as like a means. But like we had to focus local. That's why what Spike's been doing, and I'm sorry to put a rant here, but like Spike Cohen has been going around focusing on local elections, helping those candidates win. Because guess what? That's going to impact people
way more
right now.
Way more than presidency.
And guess what that's going to do? That's going to show people in that community like, oh, that libertarian idea, which went into policy that made my life better, that can be applied now on a macro level.
Exactly.
It's not us just talking about it. It's us showing how it's done, doing it, and then having a case study to refer back to.
I mean, Neil and I were driving home from a gig last week, and I mean, we were talking about just like the Derek Chauvin trial and all that shit, and just like not even the trial itself, but just like just the criminal justice system is broken. Like that's for, and again.
Oh yeah.
Oh, you're good.
Sorry.
You're good.
I swear to God, I'm not Italian either, which is the funniest part. I'm French Scottish.
No,
So.
I know you're blocking Adam's confused face. I'm sorry.
There's that you and Neil both sit there. It's weird. You're both 6'5", so you both goddamn have wingspans of eagles.
I know. Sorry. Vultures.
No, but we were just talking about how like again, Neil's not a libertarian at all. He leans left for sure. But like we were just both agreeing like, yeah, the criminal justice system's broken.
Yep.
So that's it. We could all agree on that.
Yes.
We could all agree. That's what I'm saying. If the libertarians, the left and the right could all be like, well, that's fucked up, huh? But it's not being fixed. What does that tell us? That means it's not us versus each other.
Right.
It's us versus them. They want to be us versus each other.
Bingo. Bingo. And that's why we have to, instead of just, and I'll take what you're saying and take it a step further, right? Instead of just acknowledging that there's something wrong, is then it's on us to start offering the solutions that are not government. Because think about our friends on the left. Sorry, I'm doing it again. Think about our friends on the left. I realize I caught myself. Our friends on the left, their solution is through government, right? So we need to start presenting private, free market alternatives to the government solution. So when they say, well, what's going to happen to these people when we take them off welfare? We say, gotcha. We got another program right here, ready to go. And guess what? It's completely, run by the free market, run by donors, whatever you want to do. Because if people all of a sudden have 10, 15, $20,000 more in their paycheck every single week,
right,
or every single week, every single year,
yeah,
then guess what? That's going to really add up in terms of what they can do for those feel good things. And that's where the difference comes. But right now, we talk pie in the sky. We can talk about it, but I mean, I can't really think off the top of my head if that's out there.
Do you know what the third biggest health insurance, I think,
Isn't it GoFundMe?
Yeah, it's GoFundMe.
Yep. Think about that.
It's private.
Yeah. And somebody tweeted, they were like, GoFundMe wasn't intended to be a health insurance program. And it's like, yeah, but neither was the federal government.
Right.
I'm sorry. It wasn't. Right.
And if you look at Canada, right, and they're like, well, if you poll, I think most Canadians like, no, we go to America for anything serious because their wait times is months.
Insane.
It's months. And that's what people don't understand. And by the way, it's not free when you're paying taxes for it.
Right.
So it's not free. Nothing's free.
No.
I'm sorry, but nothing. It's as obvious as like basic economics, right?
It's that cartoon with the wife and the husband and the Uncle Sam, and he's giving the guy $1, and he's like, free money, and the wife's like, he has your wallet.
Right.
That's what it is.
Right. It's but again, they're like, I had cancer. I went to Michigan. It's like, it's like, yeah, because you might be paying definitely more money for it, but you're gonna live. Maybe. I mean, if you have a better chance to live it, Right. I mean, it's fucking wild. Actually, I did want to talk about it because we're both Pennsylvania guys, and we're both Mises guys too. Is where I live in Bucks County. I'm gonna be running for vice chair.
Okay,
for fucking
cool.
Just the local Bucks County Libertarian Party.
Nice.
We have a bit of a problem. They're not even gonna hear this. It doesn't matter. By the time they hear this, it'll be way too late, honestly. But like, it doesn't matter. People listen to this be like, "This is a month old." I'm like, "I'm sorry."
We're still having fun, damn it.
Yeah. No. So, as you know, the Mises Caucus is trying to unify the whole party and put a lot of Mises guys in charge, Mises guys and gals in charge, and because we think this is the way to go. This is the way to turn the party. In Bucks County, our chair doesn't even live in Bucks County.
Okay.
He lives in Montgomery County. We find out because now we have like 15 Mises guys in the group because we all unified and came together, and there's only like a handful of non-Mises people in the group. We find out, come to their old shittily held notes in the past meetings, that one day they just kind of all put themselves in charge. I'm not kidding. Like
I know you're not. That's why I'm laughing.
Like we checked their note, like the meetings, and they're barely even notes. They're barely taken. And then we couldn't really figure out how it happened. We're all trying to figure out in the group chat, like, what the fuck? Now, here's where the shit gets even wilder. This one guy starts popping off on Facebook about Michael Heiss and the Mises Caucus and how we're liars and all this, usual slander that we get as a Mises group. I was like, cool, man. Well, I'm going to see you next month. So last month's meeting, he bailed before I could even confront him.
Oh.
Gone. Now, during that meeting, the chair, John, his name is John, one of our guys just asked, he goes like, hey, when are the officer elections again? And he was like, oh, we just had him actually. Next time they were in the set, like, he acted like a catty girlfriend, like getting mad. And we're like, okay, weird, but okay. Now, we looked into the bylaws and stuff like that. Turns out they're just breaking all the rules. They're supposed to have elections last month. They didn't, right? So now, after that meeting, John goes on Twitter and goes, I just stopped over the Mises Caucus in Bucks County. Nice try, ha. We're like, we never tried.
We haven't tried yet.
We just asked a question. And now, like, again, they're not. This is way gonna come out after this meeting. So next month's meeting in May, we're gonna force an agenda to motion for an officer election and just fucking vote all them out because we have so many members.
So I have not officially jumped on like official Mises Caucus, but I'm in the groups.
Yeah,
I've had Mises Caucus on the show,
Yeah.
and it's because I've looked at what has been put in place as like the status quo solution that is the Libertarian Party hierarchy, and it just hasn't gotten us anything. Like,
Yeah.
if we're gonna count votes, okay, we can count 2016 when it was the worst presidential candidate. As my phone goes off,
Oh, Gary
the
Johnson.
worst, the worst presidential candidate versus the second worst presidential candidate, then Gary Johnson.
Yeah.
and he gets, was it 4 million votes, something like that?
Yeah.
We run Joe Jorgensen, who is very libertarian,
Yeah.
but candidly not a great salesperson for liberty.
Well, she kind of, she fell flat on a lot of issues that she just didn't stick up for.
A lot of unforced issues or unforced errors.
Yeah.
And now I think it's on. I'm seeing the change, and part of it has been from this conversation that we're having. We're seeing the approach to how we're actually advancing policy forward and getting things into actual action versus just talking about this stuff. The pathway used to be libertarians would go from the Libertarian Party, fight for a few years, and then go to a think tank, right?
Yeah.
And that was kind of the progression.
Yeah.
Whereas now, what we're seeing is that there's more successes that we're seeing from more, I would say, libertarians who are focused on issues that people care about. Surprise, surprise. And we're seeing more and more of the I want to say pragmatic libertarians, but like more of the establishment libertarians that. I don't know if I can call them establishment because it's such a little fish in little pond situation that we have right now. But as we see the pond is going to grow, which should be the goal,
Right, of course.
we're going to overtly bring in non-libertarians by the very nature of
That's
growing.
what happens.
So instead of being like all pissy about it, help educate them, help enlighten them, help inform them, help me make them better versions of whatever entry-level libertarian they are.
Exactly. Like, I hear some left-leaning libertarians like, oh, these neocons to the right. I'm like, yeah. I'm like, they're going to come in by nature, but we're going to make them not be a fucking neocon, hopefully. And if they don't, then see you later.
And
man.
Larry
We
said
don't need
that.
you.
Larry, this is Larry Sharp's
Yep.
approach. He's like, in the Larry Sharp way, Brian, I'll bring in the people, and you just got to train them. I'm like, yes, Larry, yes, tell me more.
Larry. I don't even know how Larry's my friend. We're so opposites in like. And like recruiting, he's like everybody. I'm like, fuck these people. Like,
Larry's
they don't
the
deserve to walk on the ground.
And you know what drives me crazy though is that like people will poo-poo on Larry's approach, and then look at what Larry was able to accomplish in New
He
York.
accomplished so much.
Come on, and like that should be the model. And instead of like embracing that, people just want to constantly be right. And this is something honestly why my show has taken such a turn over the past like 6-7 months has been because like I don't want to be like in a world where it's constantly libertarians out libertarian each other to be more right. I don't give a fuck anymore. I'm sorry. Like our goal should be right now as a movement collectively to make everybody's lives infinitely more
Better.
freer in their lifetime, in our lifetimes. And we can do it. It's not going to be overtly through the Libertarian Party. It's not going to be overtly through the Democratic Party. It's not going to be overtly through the GOP.
Yeah.
It's not going to be overtly through politics. It's going to be a multifaceted approach. It's going to be through technology. It's going to be through educating people through like school choice alternatives. It's going to be showing people policy prescriptions, like getting the monopoly of violence out of our government and getting it more into like the people's hands. Once we're able to start getting things into action, that's when people are going to wake up that it's not just talk. And again, I don't mean to like always go back to this, but like we can say all day long how right we are, but until we show people, that's when it matters. People don't want to just go ahead and support people for feeling good.
Yeah,
like,
you're right.
Libertarian, and I do a new Sunday candidate highlight series on Sundays, and it drives me crazy when I hear them say like, we're the third choice. Fucking goodness. Who cares? Nobody cares if
second loser.
Nobody cares if you're the third choice. You need to be the best choice.
Yeah.
What are you doing to be the best choice?
One of my favorite memes shitting on ourselves is it's from Futurama, and it's Professor Farnsworth, and it's like a convention of other scientists, and he's like, don't listen to that crackpot down there, and the scientist yells back, but I'm agreeing with you, and then the quote is like libertarians arguing with libertarians.
100%. Like
my favorite. It's my favorite quote. It's my favorite meme.
It's so true.
It's so true though. We are the worst. We're the fucking worst.
We are. Well, and it almost requires us to get out of our own way.
Yeah.
Like, come on, stop making our job so difficult.
No, I think I know what I think I know what like the block is in our brain with it, and where we have a hard time getting through it is because we're all like, hey, we're the fucking outsiders in the political thing, like, right, like we should like you think like me, and they're like, yeah, and then they say something like, wait a minute, what? Like, what? We were supposed to be together. That's not. And I know it's dumb, but that's what it is. Probably
tribalism's a big.
It's 100% that.
Yeah, but so this is where we lose, is because instead of acknowledging that tribalism is the real thing, we try to make it not be a thing.
Right.
It's like, no. Tribalism has literally been a thing throughout all of human existence forever. And guess what? It's going to be until like something happens where the interdimensional space demons go ahead and show us how to like use consciousness to like communicate. We're going to have some type of tribal mentality because it's either going to be protecting one's resources, protecting one's way of life and culture, whatever it may be. You're going to see people instantly gravitate towards those different communities. And instead of fighting against that, we should say, this is going to happen. So instead of having government try to make everybody live together in this one big 300 million plus people country across 50 very vast geographic states, like, let's let people live as they see fit based on where they live. It's 2021. And what the fuck are we doing?
And when we say that doesn't mean like murder's okay. No, laws still exist. Like, we're still gonna have laws. It's the people, like, when we say that, people just think like, hey, I'm like, no. You still can't murder. You still can't steal.
That's why they got so freaked out when Texas ended their mask mandate. They were like, they're not going to wear masks anymore.
You can still wear it.
Right. But that's the thing, Adam, is that when they hear no more mask mandate, that means that because there's no more mask mandate, people won't do it.
Right.
And that speaks to entirely how like the left looks at the government as a means to get policy done for like their idea of good. And in this case, their idea of good was protecting everybody from everybody else by making people wear a mask, despite, and I had Nick Hudson from PANDA, which is the Pandemics Data and Analytics Organization, on my show. He had an amazing talk that was actually censored on YouTube. It was the ugly truth about the lockdowns, and thank God I had him on the show because it was like the day after it aired. I think it got up to like 470 some odd thousand views before it got nuked. But like digging into like the actual science behind the lockdowns, and he's working with like Scott Atlas, Dr. Gupta, the Great Barrington Declaration. My brain just broke. From AIAR. All three of those major epidemiologists, they were all part of the PANDA organization's boards, and like focusing on like the actual science of the pandemics versus like the mass hysteria. And you look at states like Michigan, who right now as we're recording, their cases are just going up and up and up. I'm sorry, did their lockdowns and mask mandates not work? Like, I thought that's what was supposed to stop the pandemic, but the narrative is breaking, and this might be the best thing for libertarians right now. We're seeing across the board people start to realize that the people who pretend to know what's going on are full of shit.
Brian, I just say this all the time. I go, like, if you guys don't think you're being lied to, Gavin Newsom was out at fucking French Laundry with 30 people that were definitely not his family.
Nope.
So, I mean, what are we... And Nancy Pelosi's getting... I know there's two liberals I mentioned, but I'm sure Republicans are doing it too. I'm saying, like, everyone... All these politicians are out doing what they want, but they're the first ones to... My favorite is all of them getting caught, like, fake putting on masks before they go to the podium. And again, this isn't conspiracy. Watch the fucking videos.
And that's...
Like, watch them yourself.
And we have to make sure that we're presenting the information and presenting this stuff in a way that your average person is going to be able to watch it and be like, oh, fuck.
I watched this dude. They filmed him walking with like a team of people. They were all not wearing masks.
It was Pete Buttigieg.
Right? Shit! Right
Yeah.
to the fucking right to the curtains,
Yep.
and then he went, hold on.
And he pulled it out, put it on. Yep.
Walks to the podium and goes,
Yep.
I go, who's that for? 'Cause
Yep.
I just watched you I watched you with 7 people who none of you were wearing masks.
Yeah. Well,
Because you guys didn't think you were being filmed.
did you see the Brian Stelter, the Chiron on CNN? And it's like, here, most Fox News hosts haven't shared a selfie of their vaccine cards.
That's virtue signal. That's to say anybody. And by the way, this would annoy me at last election. How many people, even on the right and libertarians, posted "I voted" stickers? I was like, who gives a fuck? That was very annoying. Because like I expected that from the left, but when I saw like the right and libertarians doing it
That doesn't
too,
bother me as much, though.
it does bother me.
Really?
Yeah, it's virtue signaling. It's like, look what I did to better this country, and it's like, shut up. Because you're not better in the country.
But
no matter who you voted for, you're not. So that's the point.
Hold
It's
on,
like,
isn't local elections important?
I was gonna say,
I'm talking about the
Then
president.
isn't
Sorry.
fucking voting
Hold on.
important?
I'm talking about the presidential election.
you know it's good when you get like the producer involved. Wow.
Sorry, I meant the presidential election. Sorry, that's what I meant.
But you know
it
what's-
does because no, the president doesn't matter.
No, well, and
that
if you're
was his
only-
point. That's
if
Brian's
you're
point.
only voting for president, though, especially only president, it doesn't really matter that much. But that's why it's so important on us to speak to the value of why we need to focus on local stuff, right? I mean, look at Philadelphia. Like, you don't need to look no further than Philadelphia and how bad it's really gotten under just these more and more progressive policies.
Didn't the mayor here? Didn't he get caught like?
In fucking Maryland, when there was a rule that you could not have any indoor dining, and he went down to Maryland where
Yeah.
they had less restrictions, so he could go eat. And he like got called out. I think it was Mark Vetri called him out, the very famous chef here in Philadelphia, and like he did some half-assed apology. But like, no, I'm sorry. This is quite literally let them eat cake.
Yeah.
Some animals are more equal than others.
Oh, so this we're not shit on the left the whole time. I'll throw a fucking 2 pieces of shit on the right in here. Well, there's the 2 senators who sold their fucking stock.
Yeah,
Loeffler and fucking Burr.
It's the one lady from Georgia, right?
Yeah, and the other dude.
Yep.
That's like selling you sold fellow American citizens out for fucking because you could have been easily could be like, hey, there's a fucking thing coming,
Right.
But they were like, oh, what's gonna happen?
Let's make sure we take our money out of the market first
Like,
before it crashes.
Huh.
Yep.
And then did you see her not even her apology? She's like, I was just told.
Yeah, it's
to
a blind
do something.
trust. I just did what I was told. My money,
Yeah.
millions of dollars. I
Yeah.
mean, I didn't
Fuck
think
you.
about it twice.
It's like traitor shit in my eyes. It really is. It's
well,
like,
and then here comes the best question we have to ask. What are you going to do about it? Right?
Nothing, apparently.
And that's it. 'Cause they're like, and again, some animals are more equal than others. And
Yeah.
until we get this notion that we just gotta put better farmers or animals in charge. Like, no,
Right.
it doesn't work. We've tried this.
no, the lockdown hypocrisy from politicians is honestly because again, you don't have to even convince people. You could just be like, well, watch this picture.
Right.
Look at this video. There's literally hundreds.
Yes.
There's not even 2. There's hundreds of it. And not just of the big ones, even local politics, all up and down. And then you go on their Twitters and their official narratives and they're like, stay home, wear a mask, but they're not doing any of it. And then again, who should you be mad at? Me for telling you that?
Right.
Or them for doing whatever the fuck they want and not listening, but making you stay the fuck home? Because last time, I mean, again, I'm anti anybody telling me what to do, and if my wife will be like, "Hey, don't do that," I'll be like, "Don't fucking," even if she's right. It's just that I hate authority, right? It's like, tell me a different way not to do that. But for them just to, again, openly just walk around, again, that Gavin Newsom picture. When I saw that, I was like, "Hey, what are we doing?
Yeah.
What are we doing here?"
Yeah. Well, and I think all of us with critical thinking skills, we acknowledged from like the moment that the Black Lives Matter protest started, like, okay, so you can be outside and you'll be fine.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's just that's what I'm saying. There's no consistency.
No.
So it's like be consistent.
But damn it, Adam, trust the science.
or don't be
Trust
consistent.
the experts, man. Stop critically thinking. Just trust.
I hate hypocrisy. And this we were talking about this on Cult of Us a little bit last week. I think was there's a comic, and she kind of openly, randomly shit on Shane Gillis again for not being hired by SNL, and then a bunch of people dug up her old tweets, and then she got fired from Adult Swim.
Wow.
And then she was like, well, I deserved it. And I was like, you don't.
You don't. Stop.
And again, I fell victim to it too, because at first I was like, good. And
Stop being a useful idiot.
Right, because at first I was like, oh, you know what? Yeah, that's what you fucking get. I was like, you know what? No, I don't want to be a hypocrite, because you don't deserve to lose your daughter for that. And we shouldn't celebrate that.
Right.
Even though
it's fucked up.
It's fucked up.
Yeah.
I'm like, and you were, but at the time when she tweeted those, she's like 23 now. When she tweeted those, she's probably like 18 years old.
And you know
like
what?
17
And I
years
just
old.
did a podcast today. We're going to a video format for the show. It is like a sneak peek, and it was about words mattering and how we've seen words change and lose their meaning over decades, and it's happening quicker and quicker.
Yeah.
Right. And as we lose the ability to agree on what words mean, then how can we have a conversation about getting 300 million people to do the same thing when we don't agree what the word means in the bill?
My wife does that. If we have an argument, I'll be like, well, that's not what you said. She's like, well, you know what I meant? I'm like, no, we all agreed on the lexicon of the English language, and then you said the words, and then you're like, well, I didn't mean those words. Like, that's not how this works. I'm not a fucking mind reader.
It's the Bill Clinton. Well, it's what's the definition of is. That's all it is. It's Bill Clinton playing semantics. And this is where we need, as a movement, to make sure that we're the ones being consistent. Don't be hypocritical. Stick to your principles, stick to what you believe in, but also make sure that we're not preaching. Don't be the preacher. People will go to the church when they want to go to the church. If you're out there and you're trying to get people interested in liberty, you got to be a salesperson. And at the end of the day, that requires you to enter into conversations, being genuinely curious, and ask questions, and then shut up. Listen to the answer.
Yeah, I gotta do better with that myself.
They will tell you what's wrong.
I gotta do better with that myself. I'm definitely not good at that.
It's tough because we have all the answers. We know that, and we want them to know that. But
even when we say, I sound cunty when we say that, but it's like, yeah, but I do feel that way.
School choice is super important. But what if I'm talking about school choice to a single parent, or no, I'm sorry, a single dude who doesn't have a kid?
Oh, right. He doesn't give a fuck.
But yeah, so if I'm
Jesse, do you care about school choice?
Right? So think about it. If I'm talking to Jesse about school choice, yeah, he's gonna be like, "Fuck, okay, so what?"
Actually, you could go on, Mike. Jess, I have a real question for you because Jesse's not a libertarian at all. He's
oh, this must have been painful for you.
No,
I'm sorry.
No, it's not that painful. I think there's just I think the core of what you guys are trying to get to is true, but I think you guys need to realize that the media and all that shit just plays off of whatever's gonna make them money.
Oh,
100%.
You know what I mean?
100%.
And
But that's what
problem,
they
though.
want to shut us up, though, and that's the danger. Is that they're trying to use? No.
Kind of yes and no. I don't disagree.
Oh, Brian Stelter would silence you in a heartbeat.
But also, it's I don't think they're trying to silence us because they take cues from us. You know what I mean? And it's
but they have to.
Right.
They have to
it's
keep
their
up.
job.
Think about it.
true.
We are
but
a
it's
spark.
It's just distractions.
But think about it. We are a spark into the entire media industry and what we're doing that honestly wasn't really there until the advent of talk radio. Right. So in our doing what we're doing right here, think about this production quality and how this is going to come out at the end when it's done. Right. I remember watching Trevor Noah in the very beginning of the pandemic, and he was awful. It was like a Skype video, right? So they were playing, and this is millions of dollars of production
Comedy
value.
Central.
Oh, I know, yeah.
He has a $21 million home in Malibu, I think.
It was interesting to see people go to the YouTube model.
But but think about that. That speaks to we're setting the trend, and they're playing catch up. So they wouldn't want to play catch up if they didn't have to.
Right.
The best thing, and I say this in my sales job all the time, the biggest competitor I have is the status quo all day long, because everybody wants to go along to get along. Nobody wants to change. It's so easy. If things have always been this way, then okay, well, I'm comfortable with that. So what? And if I'm not being hurt by it, then why would I want to get uncomfortable? It's I see too often, for example, me, I used to weigh 385 pounds.
Yeah.
Losing 180 pounds at first, that was a tough job.
Yeah.
And if I didn't get comfortable with being uncomfortable, same thing looking at how we engage in conversations. We have to get comfortable engaging in difficult conversations. But when you look at the people who don't want us to have that conversation, they would much rather have a situation where we're not having this conversation.
Absolutely.
Libertarians not having a conversation on a podcast where it can't be regulated. That's why they wanted net neutrality to begin with, because then they could, I work in telecom. So they wanted to take control of the means of disseminating the information.
Right.
So if that was controlled by the government, Well, guess what? Now all of a sudden you can start tossing in all the different laws that go in with the FCC, and let's just toss in podcasts casually, like John Brennan tossed in libertarians as domestic terrorists,
that was
right?
crazy.
And that's the slippery slope. And I know it's a logical fallacy technically, but with government, it's not a logical fallacy because they have one thing that a logical fallacy doesn't. It's monopoly. The monopoly on your attention and the monopoly on, quite literally, your livelihood. Like, you will believe and listen to the government, and if you don't, we're going to throw you in a cage. And by the way...
Partially?
I
mean, we get thrown in cages, yes.
Yeah, I don't like that.
I'm
Sucks.
I'm saying not always is it going to be to that extreme.
No, but the point is it can be that extreme, though.
Why, hold on.
Be.
Can I ask?
Yeah,
so
sure.
why not, though?
Why not to that
Give me an
extreme?
example of how it wouldn't get to that extreme.
Because we still got like protests and shit. There's still like laws. I think everything can be changed, right? Through voting. And that's the point.
But is that a good thing?
Yeah.
Why?
Wouldn't it? Because then you're putting in charge.
So Neil, Adam, and I vote 3-1 that we want your money.
That's not what we're voting on. We're voting on who's in charge of what particular structure that we put in, right?
Right.
So that's my point. My point is this can be all fixed if we can find a way that if politics can attract people who want to do well, not the monsters that we have now.
So how do you
It
do
doesn't now, right?
So
how do you
do that, though?
Right, how do you do it, though?
Man,
Take money out of politics?
What's the
you gotta
incentive
take money
structure?
out of politics. Number one.
I think everyone truthfully agrees on that, right? I think the left, right, and not the politicians.
Because-
I mean,
yeah.
I would
people.
Because
I'm
of
sorry,
the
Jess.
power structure, yes.
No, because I
Right.
think the Republicans are just corporate people. They're doing the bidding for the corporate.
So this is live, by the way. Live for us.
It's live for us,
If you had to guess, who did the Democratic Party primarily support? Was it or who was it primarily supported by of this past election? If you had to pick.
Oh, I mean, like they get corporate money too. I'm not.
No. By people from those corporations.
What do you mean?
So, like, if you look at the average person from those corporations, where their money went from individual donations, predominantly went to the Democratic candidates. So the people who make up those corporations are not Republican; they're overtly Democrat.
Yeah, it's like
and their
saying,
dollars show
it's like saying Apple's fucking right. It's like Apple's a very left-leaning company. So is Google. They all are.
Yeah, but they also give money to Mitch McConnell.
Yeah, but he's not. So
but that's my point.
That's the problem, though.
Right,
Is
no,
that it's this pendulum swing.
It's
right.
Pendulum,
We have to
it
get it
doesn't
out.
matter as long as I put in put a little money on black and I'll put a little money on red. How can I lose?
But
that's
here's
my point.
But here's the problem, though: is if we were to just keep doing this idea of voting to get the best people in, well, how do we determine how to do the voting? It's through a democratic process, right?
Yeah.
So how do you win a democratic majority?
You have to be in their face.
Right. But also, isn't that overtly a populist message?
Yeah.
Right.
Theoretically, yeah.
So in order to actually get a true democracy enacted, you have to be a populist candidate. Now, I don't know about you guys, but just looking at history, I know that when we look at overtly, solely populist candidates, things don't end out too well.
Trump.
So Trump,
He was very popular.
Yeah, go through the list. I mean, even Obama was overtly
Oh yeah,
populist.
shit, Obama. Yeah,
Hope and change was like the mantra. So my point is that we need to have this idea that the populism exists out there, but like we have to get rid of the incentive structures that want it to be used for like the group domination, right? Because all it takes is, and this is one the dangerous things about democracy is that while you might think that the good guys are in control today, all it takes is one or two of those good guys to then like maybe decide that there's something more that they want, and maybe they want it in nefarious ways, and they know they can use government to accomplish that. So you start, it's like the little death by 1,000 cuts.
Right.
Like you start to, okay, I'll do this one little shady thing in government. It's okay. And then time and time again, it goes worse and worse and worse and worse. And it just becomes, well, it's not what
But
I'm
also
doing.
it has the ability to, you have the ability to do good things.
Yeah, but here's the thing. Don't we have the ability to do good things outside of government?
Right. It's
Yeah,
a lot
I
of
think
good
so,
things.
too.
I think you get more
not
good
saying-
stuff done though outside of government because
I think both models can work. It's just whether it's now finding the government to allow for both models to work.
So if I were to say, Jesse, you have $1,000 right now, right?
Yeah.
So tax day's coming up, my birthday, okay, April 15th. So for my birthday, I'm going to tell the federal government to take $1,000 of your taxes that you were going to be paying, and they're going to give it to you. Okay? You have a $1,000 check in your hand.
Yeah.
Jesse, would you want to go ahead and say, you know what? I trust that Philadelphia is going to do a better job with my $1,000, or you're going to look and try to find organizations in the greater Philadelphia area that you support based on a mission-oriented cause that you can give that money to and directly see where that money goes. Which one would you feel more comfortable doing?
I mean, I don't know to trust either.
No,
To be
come
fair.
on, Jeff.
But
You know what I mean?
here's the thing, is that if you don't take my offer, I'm just going to revoke the offer and let government take it anyways. Because that's what they're going to do if they didn't, right?
Right.
Because here's the thing, Jeff, and this
But
is...
I'm
Hold on, real quick. This is I'll go off a federal tax model instead, so,
Okay.
instead of state. So I pay. We all have to pay federal taxes, right? Dude, for a fact, this is undebatable. That money, some of it for sure, is going to bombs to kill innocent brown kids overseas.
yeah, no, I know.
And I'm not okay with that.
No, definitely
And
not.
I
no.
know my money is literally supporting murder of children, and I can't stop it because I'll go in a cage. So if anything I could do in the future to work towards me not murdering babies, I'm for. And that's honestly how I feel, because I know that's where it's going.
Now,
it's
while-
not going to war.
And like that's so
Like,
that's the hyperbolic answer, which I do agree with. Don't get me wrong, but I would say from more of a rational approach to how you want to deal with the money, because I think you're more in the mindset of well, it's not a matter of the government being inherently bad or good. It's the people who are in it, and we just got to put the right people in. Is that fair to say?
Exactly.
Okay, right.
Yeah.
So I hear that argument, and I get that argument because I used to think the same thing.
Right.
But I've found, and it's frustrating because I grew up involved in local governance too, is that just as easy for the federal government to have your money go towards killing brown kids over in the Middle East with your tax dollars, your money can be going to also nefarious places with the local government.
True,
we see this
exactly.
here in the greater Philadelphia area all the time. So my argument and my pitch would be to you is that, listen, I want the same thing. I want a better situation for our local governance, especially because that's just going to raise all boats across the board. If your local communities get better, then you're just, by the very nature, more people are going to be doing better. So I want that too. I just am looking at government and looking at the history of government as being a wholly inefficient means. And here's the best part, right? And maybe because I got going soon because I got time. But technology is only new so long as you don't remember the technology before it, right? Think about it again. This little device here, okay? This little guy.
Yeah.
This is a little freaking computer
yeah.
in our pocket. There's a generation right now, they don't know a world where this didn't exist.
Yeah, it's wild.
Think about that,
Yeah.
right? So this is the status quo.
Yep.
So think about when you're a kid.
Actually, bro, did you ever see the video of they ask
the monkey?
No.
Oh,
where they ask.
Did you see the monkey playing Pong?
No.
With his brain?
Yes, I saw that.
Holy
see
shit.
that.
Yeah,
It's the Neuralink.
Wild, the Neuralink thing. Yeah,
That's
the
going to
Elon
be
Musk thing.
status quo, though.
Yeah.
That will be status quo.
No, there was this great, it was like a cute video of this parents, and they asked the dad, hey, pretend you're on a phone, and he does this.
Yep.
And then they asked their kids, hey, pretend you're on a phone, and they just do this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because they're like, why would you do this?
So,
yeah.
and
It's fun, and people don't know at home. I'm doing the
ring.
the thumb and pinky,
ring me up.
right? And the kids were just doing they're holding a smartphone
brick.
to their ear, right?
Yeah.
It's wild to see that, but
Yeah.
that makes sense.
Yeah, and think about it, right? So there's a great book called Z-Economy by Jason Dorsey. I can't recommend it enough because it looks at Gen Z.
The economy.
Z-Economy.
Okay.
And it looks at Gen Z
Right.
from a standpoint of, well, who are they?
Yeah, they're
Right?
wild.
But here's where I get excited as a libertarian. They are overtly independent. They are overtly
True.
they enjoy the personality of making themselves them.
Yeah.
They don't like this idea of I am one of the crowd. That's not their thing. And also with technology, two things. One, from a frame of reference for events, they don't remember 9/11.
Right.
9/11.
Oh, that's
the thing.
actual history to them.
Right.
Right.
And smartphones are their new thing. So think about the younger Gen Zers. They're growing up in a world where it's not uncommon to do homework from home and do schoolwork from home and do school from home. So now that's not a weird thing in the future. So how can that not help the school choice argument for getting kids to maybe go homeschool or do private school or online schooling? So as the technology, and this is where I'm excited, is that libertarians have some of the best technology thinkers in the world, right?
Yeah.
Let's get those folks out there getting the solutions in place. So then when the time comes that we're having this conversation about the $1,000 check,
Right.
I can say, hey, Jesse, listen, I know that this is how it's been done. We give the $1,000 to the government. But listen, there is this awesome new company, and what they're doing is they're helping kids who are in low-income areas get like education that would rival like Ivy League schools. I mean, would you be interested in learning more?
Fuck yeah.
Yeah.
Right. And by the way, school choice is essentially like what happens now is, again, you just blindly pay taxes to the county or whatever, and then the county chooses where your kid gets to go to school.
No, I got
And
that.
the whole point is like we want
The money to at least go to the kids.
The money goes to the family.
Yeah.
So because again, the schools have no incentive to do a good job.
And where does the money go predominantly? It doesn't go to good teachers.
Right,
It
exactly.
goes to administrators.
And again, my wife's again, you know, Jess, but my wife's a teacher.
And my wife's in the school district. Yeah, I get it.
She works in a private school, private Catholic school.
Okay.
But I see how hard she works. Like she doesn't get home till like 6:30 sometimes. Like she actually gives a fuck. She's like she's a chair of her department. Like she works so fucking much. And then her not all of them, some of her coworkers barely exist.
Yep.
And they make the same dollar. And it's like, why is that fair?
Incentive structures, man.
It's right. It's not.
No, it's not. No, and unfortunately, that's the ultimate thing about government is that the incentive structures are there for it to just constantly make itself bigger. You guys watch The Office?
Yeah, of course.
No? Okay. Well, it's a great scene in The Office. I can't recommend it enough.
Love the show.
Because what happens is the premise for the episode is they are going to have a budget surplus.
Oh yeah. Oh,
Right?
this is a great episode.
Yes, it is. And they get to choose between copiers or chairs.
Right.
And Michael asks Oscar, the accountant, to explain to him what's a surplus.
Right.
And Oscar uses the example of a lemonade stand. And he's like, well, if your mommy and daddy give you $5 to go start a lemonade stand. So you go out, you buy the lemons, you buy the water, you buy the sugar, and you get ready to make your lemonades, and you make all that money back. Well, then mommy and daddy are going to come back to you, and they're going to say, how much money do you have left? And you're going to say, well, if you didn't spend it all, you're going to say, well, here's $1 back, right? Well, then next year, when mommy and daddy are going to give you money to start a lemonade stand, they're going to know it only cost you $4. So they're going to give you $4. So there's an incentive structure in place to spend an extra $1. Well, guess what? The government's incentive to spend an extra $1 is your tax dollar. It's not like out of the goodness of what's best for the government to help people. It's out of the fact that we need to spend this money, otherwise that money goes away. And we don't want the money to go away because people are government. We make up government. So if we as people are inherently flawed, then government as an organization of inherently flawed people will inherently have incentive structures that are not good in place to keep them in those positions of power. Because there is no means to focus on spending the money in more efficient or effective ways. So at least in the office, they got to choose between copiers or chairs, right? Something that's collectively good for the entirety of the office. Whereas if you're trying to get rid of the money for a faceless government organization, I mean, maybe you end up putting $10,000, $15,000 of that into cup holders for different. I think it was a different Boeing plane they did for the military.
Yeah.
It's like 50.
Yeah.
Check that out. It's like 15 or $50,000 cup holders, right?
Yeah.
So like
what? Yeah. Again, that could go into literally anything useful.
Right.
Like,
So,
literally anything useful.
and that's inherently the problem.
Right.
And that's what I'm trying to do. And shit, I gotta get going. But
I know. Sorry.
But that's what I'm trying to do is to try and focus on, like, we're not different. We all have the same spidey senses tingling that shit's weird. Like something's not right. And it's like and this is for the libertarians out there. Hi folks, the libertarians out there is to like say, listen, our solutions overtly are not governmental because we don't want it to go back to the problems that existed in the first place. We're trying to eliminate those incentive structures from the onset so we don't even have to get to that point. Instead, and then we can correct the private market things like we do now when that time comes, but instead of having to worry about being thrown in a cage if you stand up too strongly against that organization, well, then maybe you just can't shop at that place anymore. That might be the ultimate consequence versus being thrown in a cage for the rest of your life.
That's a great place to end. Not going to jail. Brian, tell everybody where they can find you and your show, please.
Yeah.
Your great podcast.
Thank you, sir. So it's the Brian Nichols Show. You can find me pretty much anywhere you get your podcast, but if you're looking specifically, briannicholsshow.com. As for me, I'm on Twitter, Facebook, minds.com, parlor.com, B Nichols Liberty. We're doing 4 days a week. It's been wild. So we do a Sunday candidate series on Sundays, interviewing candidates all across the United States who are pro-liberty candidates, Republicans, Democrats, libertarians, all those in between. Then we have our main shows. Monday, Wednesday, Friday, we're having 3 amazing guests per week talking about issues that people care about. And my goal for my audience, educate, enlighten, and inform. So you can find it all your major podcasts. Also, we just instituted a new video format.
Damn.
So, we're just blasting off, man. Yeah, we're having a lot of fun. So appreciate the time,
Dude,
man. It's
thanks
an
for
absolutely
coming.
fantastic conversation.
No,
Thank
for
you.
sure, man. Go check out Brian's a good Twitter follow if you guys care about liberty. So go give Brian a good Twitter follow. Also, I was on his podcast. Go listen to that episode. It was fun.
That was a lot of fun, yeah.
Just being nonsense on that show. It was super fun. Again, guys, you can check me out at Adam Nutter, Twitter, Instagram, Adam Nutter Comedy on Facebook and TikTok. Droptent.com for all the other great podcasts. Please go check out, again, Cult of Us I do with Neil Woods, my comedy show. Slapstick Sports I do with Jesse. It's comedy and sports. And my Garbage Opinions podcast I do with a bunch of other guys. That is fun. Again, May 4th, I'll be in Staten Island, the Little Victory Theater doing
I have a
shows.
plug, too.
Go.
April 22nd. Oh, shit. This isn't going to air, is it, before then? Now, fuck. If it doesn't, April 22nd, microdose.buzz, the heroic dose. I'm hosting a panel. It's a psychedelics as an alternative form of medicine for veterans in the military, PTSD, depression, anxiety, focusing on that as an alternative form of medicine. I'm hosting a panel. It's going to be a lot of fun. And if folks are interested, they can go ahead to my show notes in my my most recent episodes. Click the link in the show notes. You get 100% off the actual conference cost, so you can go ahead and watch the entire day's worth of conferences, but specifically mine's at 10 o'clock Eastern, 11 o'clock Central, I think, or I maybe have that flipped.
Wait, 10, no, yeah,
11 Central,
11 Eastern, 10
o'clock Central, yeah. So I definitely appreciate, though, if folks would go ahead and support that.
Sure.
It's a great cause, too.
No, for sure. I'll try to get I mean, really, there really is no order of how to put these out. This might be, I heard it's the 3rd episode. Fuck. Whatever. All right. Well, fuck people. You guys will figure it out. Guys, thanks for fucking listening again. Tune in on the Porcupine. We're out.
Welcome to a Drop Tent Media Production.